What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you were celebrating yesterday. But I was sitting around with the Yule log with the old family, and I was like, oh my God, it's the 26th. It's the day after Christmas. I need to make a video. What can I do? I don't want to be down here for like 4 hours recording a Bucs franchise, recording a rebuild. Like, well, why don't you talk about the Eagles? A random family member said to me, I was like, well, what do I talk about? You know, they still have everything to play for this weekend. You can't do like a season review. There's still a week to play, and this is a team that's either going to make the playoffs or not make the playoffs. There's the epic rant or gloating that will be coming Monday morning. We're like, well, why don't you kind of, it's the end of the year. I got a performance review from my employer. I used to work, me personally, some of the worst 9 to 5 jobs you ever could think of. At the end of the year, you get your performance review. That might be a raise, could be demotion, could be getting fired. I was like, well, why didn't you do that for the Eagles? And I was like, well, maybe I should. And like, we'll do it now. Because if you wait next week and they don't make the playoffs, you're probably going to be overly critical. Or if they do make the playoffs, you're probably going to be, maybe more generous than how you truly feel about your team. So this is the third time I've tried to record this. Because one, it went 32 minutes. The second one went 33 minutes. I was like, I want to keep this 15 minutes or less. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to review all the starters for the Eagles and then have a couple hot takes in between. Maybe some of the depth guys. It is what it is. Let's break into my performance review for the Philadelphia Eagles for the 2019-2020 season as of Week 16. So we're jumping at punter. Cam Johnson. How's he only 69? I think he's a top 10 punter in the league. He's a guy that's out of contract. Would definitely love to see the Philadelphia bring him back. But he's one of the most consistent Philadelphia Eagles. And, his job's not in jeopardy. I would love to have him come back and be our long-term punter. Kicker, Jake Elliott, just got a brand new contract. Was 100% on his field goals. Got a new contract. I think it made him close to like a top 5 highest paid kicker in the NFL. Now, he's been 60% on his field goal percentage and attempts ever since he got paid. So I'm a little bit worried right now. We need Jason Peters to threaten his life. But he's still a really, really solid kicker. Made some big kicks for us as a Super Bowl winning kicker. Made kicks down that entire playoff stretch and in the Super Bowl in less than ideal conditions. So I think push comes to shove. He's still a really, really good kicker. Just needs to get out of that rut. Jumping to safety position, we got Rudy Ford, just a depth teamer we traded for the Cardinals. All I really know about him is that he was good in pink slips 2 years ago when he was on our squad. We got Malcolm Jenkins, a guy that's been hot and cold this season. I maybe have been overly critical. I get he's a fan favorite. I get if you're like a social justice guy, you're a big fan of Malcolm Jenkins, what he brings to the table. But I think push comes to shove right now. He is a guy that wants to get paid more money. And I think when it comes into negotiating tactics, if he wants too much money, he is not good enough to this team that we can overpay him at this point in his career. He either takes a reasonable deal, a team-friendly deal, or no deal whatsoever. So far this season, he's been hot and cold. He had some games where he's maybe the best player on the defensive side of the ball. He's had some games where he's incredibly pedestrian and arguably the worst defensive player on the side of the ball. So I feel like no interceptions. He has 3 forced fumbles, 2.5 sacks, 72 tackles on the season. He is what he is now. He's going to be a 32-year-old safety that's still good enough to play in the NFL, but not good enough to be one of the highest paid safeties in the NFL. So I would not be shocked if the Philadelphia Eagles don't retain Malcolm Jenkins next season. If they do, I like him. I don't inadvertently dislike him, but I think his play is not living up to maybe where he values himself. So I would not be afraid at washing our hands clean and be like, best of luck elsewhere. We got to get younger at the position. Same could kind of be said about free safety here. We just got Epps from the Vikings practice squad. But if you look at Rodney McLeod, I actually think he's really, really solid. 77 overall in Madden, but he has 2 interceptions this year, as well as 5 pass deflections, a forced fumble, 69 tackles. I would be more inclined to bring Rodney McLeod back over Malcolm Jenkins. You told me I had to pick one. I think I'd pick Rodney McLeod at this point. He's kind of that adhesion that keeps this defense together. While he's not as versatile as Malcolm Jenkins is, he's not the same leader Malcolm Jenkins is. I think you could argue this year particularly, he's been caught out less than Malcolm Jenkins. He's made more plays than Malcolm Jenkins. He's probably our biggest hitter in that secondary. So I think he's really, really solid. He's done a really good job this year, and I'd love to see him back for the Philadelphia Eagles, as long as it's a reasonable deal for a safety that's going to be in his 30s. Jumping into the secondary, oh boy. So we got Craig James made that play against Aaron Rodgers in the Packers game. Worthy of a roster spot next year, special teamer. Crayvon LeBlanc was great during last year's playoff stretch, had an injury, finally got active. I haven't seen him out there. I don't know about you guys. Maybe I'm just missing it, but I think he's a really, really nice nickel, and we'll get to another player that I think, honestly, I'd give Crayvon LeBlanc a chance to be the starting nickel corner. We got Rasul Douglas. I think that he's a great depth corner. He's a guy that can be used increased minutes in certain matchups. Like for 90% of that Falcons game early in the year, he covered Julio Jones and did a damn good job against a top 5 corner until really the one time he didn't, and it cost us the game. But I think Rasul Douglas, he's a great matchup, but probably shouldn't be a starter, which he's been, kind of starting in and out of the lineup here. Jalen Mills, he's a safety playing corner. I think probably should look at moving on, but he's one of Jim Schwartz's guys. As long as Jim Schwartz is here, Jalen Mills is most likely going to be here. If Jim Schwartz is gone, if something happens in the offseason, I guarantee one of the first things the DC is going to do is probably look at Rasul and Jalen and be like, you guys are playing safety. You're better at safety. I think Jalen Mills could be a lot more productive and offer a lot more to this defense as a safety. So we'll have to wait and see, but I would not be surprised if he's not on this team next year. I think he has a contract coming up. Sidney Jones, I think out of all the players, there's a bunch of them, which is unfortunate on the Philadelphia Eagles, that haven't been living up to their draft grade. I mean, Sidney Jones has made huge plays back-to-back weeks here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Big pass breakup against the Cowboys. Big pass breakup against the... who did they play? The Redskins? Was it 2 weeks ago? So, I mean, I'm all for Sidney Jones' redemption tour here. I mean, the tape don't lie. He was my corner 2 after Marshawn Lattimore, and it was very close. It was almost a 1A, 1B. The Achilles injury sucks. I had the same kind of injury. It takes you a long time to recover. Like, I would not be shocked if he's not 100% yet. But you don't lose the instincts. You don't lose a lot of things that, he's apparently lost since we've seen him out there in an Eagles uniform. So I think in all the players that could have a redemption tour, I think Sidney Jones is the most likely, and we need that at that cornerback spot, that if he can finally put it all together, we can kind of build around him. But there's, it's still out there. Let's see. Next week, honestly, he would start. My starting corners next week, I would probably go Sidney Jones. It's Rasul Douglas and Cravon, probably with my starting corners. Probably Avonte Maddox out there, because we got Avonte Maddox. I think the issue with him is he's trying to play everything. I think he's better suited. I would probably groom him to be the heir to Malcolm Jenkins. I think he's better suited to be a free safety. Even though he didn't play any of it until last year because we had an injury crisis. I thought when you look at his skills, his strengths, his weaknesses, I think he's best suited as a free safety in comparison to the fact that we have a lot of guys that can play nickel. Sidney Jones might be best suited as a nickel. Cravon LeBlanc, definitely best suited as a nickel. So when you have already so many guys there, I think you start looking at Avonte Maddox and be like, you could go free safety. So I like him, though. He's had some ups and downs this year, but I think overall still a really nice player. Ronald Darby, arguably the worst player on the team. Even though he has 2 interceptions, he has been horrendous. Like, the only thing at least he's been able to bring in years past is he's fast. If he gets beat, he'll still make a tackle. He's getting beat and not making tackles this year. Goodbye. Get off my roster. You're terrible. Well, I think arguably the worst player on the roster. Outside linebacker Duke Riley, special teamer. Middle linebacker Nigel Bradham, another player, has not lived up to the contract that he got paid after the Super Bowl. Had a pretty good game last week, actually, against the Dallas Cowboys. I think his best game of the year. But honestly, when you look at how he's one of the more expensive linebackers in the league, I think someone like TJ Edwards, who I graded out as a huge get for the Philadelphia Eagles as a UDFA, I think you could, if you just switch the numbers, you probably couldn't tell a difference out there. Edwards makes like the same amount of plays, has yet to have an opportunity to show that he can't reel in an interception like Nigel Bradham has been able to do, and he cost literally like a tenth that Nigel Bradham cost. So I think overall, I think TJ Edwards should be the future of our team at middle linebacker. We build around that. We have that affordability that fits the Eagles' mantra of building a roster of going cheap at the linebacker position. So I think TJ Edwards, I think there's an out in Nigel Bradham's contract. Last time I was looking at Spot Rack. I honestly think I would go with Edwards over Bradham at this point, given performance and contracts. And Singleton from the CFL here, just a special teamer. Camus, solid. Again, I don't know if he should be starter. Definitely not Nate Gary, another one of the Jim Schwartz guys. It's Nate Gary, Nigel Bradham, and Jalen Mills. Gary, I think, is a solid depth. I mean, he's one of those guys, he can make an occasional good play, but the simple plays that you have to make, he often will lose, like especially like one-on-one tackling and stuff like that. You could definitely see he's a converted safety. I think when push comes to shove, he's solid depth. If we have an injury to a starter, he has to play a game or two or fill in for the remainder of a game. I can get down with that. But he definitely should not be first name on the team sheet as a linebacker on this team like he is right now. So, I'm not going to dog him even though he makes, it seems more bad plays than good. He's still an okay depth player. I'd love him to be a depth player. He just shouldn't be getting the minutes and snaps that he is getting right now in the defense. Same for said for Camus, always a special teamer. Kind of a fan favorite because he kicked for a little bit when Elliott got hurt. I think he's a solid linebacker, but again, in that territory of like, we probably should put a little bit more importance to the linebacker position and look at upgrading. Defensive line, Hector, Rush, depth guys, probably not going to make the team next year. Ridgeway, got to see what he can play. Timmy Jernigan has played like 10 games, has 7 tackles. I like Tim Jernigan. I know he's one of those guys that might not always show up on the box score, but if he's out there, it means something. But again, he's set to be a free agent. He's probably going to want okay money. I don't think we can spend it to bring him back. Unless he takes an incredibly team-friendly deal yet again, I don't think we're really getting the end production from Jernigan that we expected. Same with Malik Jackson. That's a horrible deal. I mean, you can't predict injuries. Who knows? Maybe he plays the full year, he'd have 6, 7, 8 sacks. And we'd be like, yeah, that's great value, filling in that Michael Bennett role. But as of right now, he was like our big free agency signing, along with Deshaun Jackson. And both those guys have been hurt, banged up all year because they're at the downside of their career. And maybe I'm being a little bit biased because I hate all these veteran signings every single year. It's not a good contract. And Fletcher Cox still made the Pro Bowl even though he's having a down year. And I know Pro Football Focus number still says he's like number 2, number 3 D tackle in the league. But, he hasn't looked the same. He's, 3.5 sacks this season. He needs to be more. He needs to take over games more, and hopefully he can heat up down the stretch. But he's still the most talented player. I'd probably say he's the most talented player on the team on either side of the ball in terms of pure talent at their respected position, which is saying something. I mean, I think it's still Aaron Donald at 1, Heem at number 2. Defensive line, we got Sharif Miller, horrible pick. I still hate that we made that selection. Gennard Avery, we traded a 4th-round pick for it. He literally cannot see the field. It's Golden Tate all over again. We just gave up a fairly decent draft asset for a guy that we have no idea how to implement. Vinny Curry, actually low-key 5 sacks on the year. He's been pretty damn good. I would not be against bringing Vinny Curry back again next year as a rotational guy. And then Derek Barnett. When you look at Derek Barnett, he looks every bit of a mid-round pick, and he plays like a mid-round pick, except he was one of our premier first-round selections. One of my more not viral, but one of my more prominent draft reaction videos was against an anti-Derek Barnett pick. And I wasn't a huge fan of him as a prospect, but I just hate that we went defensive end at that pick. But I was never really super pumped on this deal, and it's looking like I was kind of right. I mean, he's solid. He's a good player, but he's not a first-round defensive end. The production that we've seen, the talent that we've seen, I do not see first-round defensive end. So that kind of sucks. Osman depth. Deshaun Hall, our preseason all-star, has barely played. Josh Sweat's looked good. Josh Sweat's arguably looked as good as Derek Barnett has this year. Josh Sweat has 4 sacks, 7 TFLs. He's been, rotational edge rusher. Looks really, really damn good. I wouldn't be against him getting more snaps. Brandon Graham, 7.5 sacks, 12 TFLs this year. Good year for him. Again, it's just another year of we pride ourselves on the defensive line, yet we don't have that elite edge rusher. We have the elite Pro Football Focus edge rusher, all the pressures, the hurries, all these things, which is nice, and you can't just measure a player's talent in sacks and interceptions, but it'd be nice if for once we get some guy. Can we have a team of guys that are Pro Football Focus darlings, and you still have that one guy that gets the end production that seals the deal? I'm sick and tired of it. I don't see a guy that can get double-digit sacks on this Eagles defense right now, and that's very frustrating. Lane Johnson, in my opinion, he's in that elite top 3 group of right tackles between him, Ryan Ramczyk, and Schwartz down in Kansas City. In my opinion, I think he is still number 1, but Ramczyk's getting pretty damn close. Big V swing tackle. We still don't know what we have in Mailata. Brandon Brooks, best guard in the NFL. Don't at me. Jason Kelsey, best center in the NFL. Don't at me. Now, I am a little bit worried that he's going to retire this offseason. I kind of just have that gut feeling. But Nate Herbig, along with T.J. Edwards, was one of my favorite and highest graded out UDFA signings for the Eagles, and I think they're going to be grooming him to be the heir, potentially, to Kelsey, which more so in terms of just draft assets, not having to use a higher pick to replace Jason Kelsey when he inevitably does retire. I think that's kind of a good long-term strategy for the Eagles. Siumalo, he's just, your average guard. Sometimes he plays well, sometimes he plays bad. That's kind of what you get. But when you can't have 5 elite offensive linemen. Sometimes there needs to be that budget guy, and that's going to be Siumalo. Pryor and Opeta, it is what it is. Left tackle, Jason Peters, please retire. Please retire. And hey, honestly, come back on our coaching staff. I'd love to have JP on the sidelines. Dillard, I had a pretty good reaction to this draft pick. Jury's still out a little bit, but I think generally speaking, you can see the upside. You can see the potential, and I feel kind of comfortable given what I've already seen him when he fills in as him, penciled in as the starting left tackle next year. I think he's definitely, at worst case, going to be a solid player. Might not be Jason Peters, might not be an all-pro, but I definitely think we see a tackle that's not going to be a liability and should be really good for the Philadelphia Eagles and protecting Carson Wentz. Tight end, we got the Pro Bowler, long snapper Lovato. Josh Perkins, I just hate everything this guy represents. Philadelphia goes in the wide receiver crisis rather than poaching some of the really talented rookies that I like on other teams' practice squads. Anthony Johnson of the Buffalo's chilling up there and on the Chargers practice squad, for example. You got Emmanuel Hall, the burner, still out there in free agency. But we just keep bringing back Josh Perkins, who's this weird tight end wide receiver hybrid. I hate it. Dallas Goedert, a little bit of a regression this year. I thought we might take a next step. But there's only so many balls that can come his way when you have Zach Ertz on the squad. I think he has 500 yards, 5 touchdowns right now, and 50-some catches. He's still really good. And with Zach Ertz, he was definitely having a little bit of a down year, a little bit more drops than I'm expected. 88 catches, 900 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's still top 3 tight end, even though he's firmly number 3 behind Kittle and Kelsey. that's still a good thing to have, and I think we have a great 1-2 punch here at tight end, which definitely saved our ass during the wide receiver crisis. At wide receiver, Davis, got to see more. G. Ward, I think, perfect replacement for Aguilar. Aguilar's who's definitely going in free agency. I think a guy like Greg Ward, we're going to be able to get him back on a very affordable deal. He could definitely step up. He's going to be a cost-effective player for the Eagles going forward. Arcega-Whiteside, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of this pick. I didn't hate the pick outright. It just didn't make sense. I was like, okay, we kind of need a wide receiver. If he's going to be groomed to be Alshon's replacement, fine, but do we really need to get that in the second round? I mean, his tape was good at Stanford. If we're playing big ball, jump, basketball type wide receivers, we're throwing that up. That makes sense, but we had a wide receiver crisis from this team, and our second-round wide receiver, when you see literally every other wide receiver, it feels like that's a rookie around the league making plays, UDFA or not, and Arcega-Whiteside during a wide receiver crisis can't do anything. Very frustrating. When you see like Patrick Laird, the UDFA running back for the Dolphins, have more receptions than Arcega-Whiteside. You see like Steven Sims, UDFA wide receiver on the Redskins, have more yards. You're just like, what is going on, man? So very frustrating draft pick so far, but it looks like with Alshon's injury, there's a chance that Philly can find a way to Alshon's contract, and if Arcega-Whiteside can be that Alshon replacement, you know, I'm not going to write the book that he's a bad pick or a bust or anything like that. It's just been frustrating, very frustrating, to say the least. Aguilar's gone. Alshon's washed. It is what it is. And Deshaun Jackson, hopefully he comes back. Hopefully we draft that speedy wide receiver in the draft, and Deshaun Jackson can be his mentor, as well as a viable contributor as a veteran next season for the Eagles. Even if he can just sprinkle in a little bit that we saw in that second half against the Washington Redskins week 1, I'm going to be happy. Running backs, Boston Scott's a legend. Going to take over for Darren Sproles, that Darren Sproles role, who's retiring. Corey Clement, is he still alive? Huh? Jay Ajayi is actually no longer on the roster. They just got released. He was terrible. He was washed. And Miles Sanders, who now with the banged up injury to Josh Jacobs, I think Miles Sanders could supplant Josh Jacobs as the best non-quarterback. I mean, obviously they're going to give Kyler Murray automatically the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, but I think Miles Sanders could be the runner-up. He's been really, really good. And I think, it kind of started as Jordan Howard as lead back and Miles Sanders sprinkled in. I like Jordan Howard. I would totally be in for re-signing him, having a little bit of a smash and dash combo in this backfield and a little Boston Scott sprinkled in. But I think for going forward, Miles Sanders needs to be that lead back. Say we get 30 carries a game, which is, a healthy balance. Miles Sanders needs to be getting 15 touches. You give 10 to Jordan Howard and 5 to Boston Scott. And then at quarterback, Sudfeld, loved him to come back and be the backup to Carson Wentz. Josh McCown, the pro's pro. Hey, do you want to call plays? Anyone but Mike Groh, come back and be our OC. And then you look at Carson Wentz, and here's where I'm going to finish. I think he's 250 yards away with backup practice squad wide receivers on being the first Philadelphia Eagles quarterback to go over 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Right now, Carson Wentz is the number 5 quarterback in the league. I looked at all the QB stats. I was like, let's break it down. Where do I truly rank Carson Wentz? Obviously, there's always going to be there's some bias to it, but yeah, okay, shoot me. I like my favorite player, but I can't name, I'm looking at the top 5. He's my 5. Every time I do it, I just try to think about where they're at in their careers. Like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, they're not top 5 quarterbacks anymore. They're legends, they're Hall of Famers, but they're not really top 5. So you have Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, and Patrick Mahomes. Those are 3, firm 3. I would say Aaron Rodgers then goes at 4, and then for that number 5 spot, you're talking about Deshaun Watson, you're talking about Carson Wentz, you're talking about then come in the old heads. Drew Brees gets thrown in there. Garoppolo, I don't think he's quite in that conversation. Goff, Mayfield, all those guys are. I think Carson Wentz is right now number 5 if you're ranking the top 5 quarterbacks, given especially the performance that he has done with the hand he's been dealt in Philadelphia. So top 5 quarterback, he's been outstanding. He's had some moments, but again, I think you give any quarterback, you give Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, all these dudes, any of the weapons, you put them in this Eagles offense, they're at best going to be the same type of level statistically that Carson Wentz is right now. So, yeah, man, it looks good. It looks real good. I feel happy with Carson Wentz. And, hey, hopefully we go into this matchup against the Giants. Wentz has a great day. He's the first Eagles quarterback to go over 4,000 yards. And we can go into playoffs with no expectations because we shouldn't have been there. But, hey, you never know. So especially if we get, San Francisco or Seattle, very winnable games for the Philadelphia Eagles. Even though I can admit, not going to be the favorites. But there's today's video, guys. Half in the bag. We got ourselves through it. That is the performance review for the Philadelphia Eagles. Back to your regular scheduled up. I'll probably do a Bucks episode or something like that tomorrow. But thank you for watching. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace